opens up the box and plays the game. He never reads instructions cause they're lame. He's Bowser. Oh, he plays the game so badly. His eyes are twitching madly. He's here again so sadly. He's Bowser. Oh.
Hello, welcome back. Right, you can see the C64 is out, and it's another side-by-side comparison game alongside the Spectrum version. Now, as I've said before, really happy that I've got a Commodore 64 in the collection that I can do these sort of gameplay comparisons with. Now, I need to buy like an SD Epix cart sort of thingamajig so that I can do much more of these, because although I've got dozens upon dozens upon dozens of specky games up there on the shelf, I've only got about a dozen Commodore 64 games, so at the moment it's quite limited as to what I can do. Now, I've thought about whether or not I should invest in one of the C64 minis. I'm still toying with the idea. I prefer like physical cassettes, etc, but if I can't build up a collection anytime soon, then yeah, I'll probably plump for one. Anyone who owns one, if you could please tell me what it's like. Now, the 64 was of course donated to me by Mark Payne from Mark Fixes Stuff. I'm incredibly grateful to him. Link to his YouTube channel in the description box below. What was I gonna say just then? Oh yeah, like I've done with the Sunday Specky Surprise, I've decided on these comparison videos I won't actually name the game, so it's kind of like a surprise for you to see what it is actually when the game is loading. And you know, let me know if you think it's a good way of doing things, or if you just want the name of the game up there so you can decide for yourselves whether or not you want to watch the video. Today's game is of course Buggy Boy, as you can see. Now, it's a game I know of. I'm not massively familiar with it. The first time I ever played any of the versions of it was when I got the 64, and that was one of the games that came with it. I've never played the Spectrum version. I do own the Encore re-releases of both. It was, of course, released by Elite originally. If you can sort of see, there was a bit of a glare from outside. The Commodore 64 and the Spectrum version. It came out on other systems as well, but obviously I can only do these two. If you want to see a video of all the different versions of Buggy Boy, then I suggest you check out Chinnyvisions' video of it, because he goes through, he covers all the versions and gives his opinion as to which is the best. So similarly, at the end of this video, you know, share your thoughts on what you think of either version. How they compare against each other, which one you think looks the best. Also, if you have any experiences of this game, if you knew it back in the day, like I say, I knew of it, but I never owned it, never played it, can't say why, etc. Now, like I said, I'm really pleased that I've got the 64 in the collection, because it opens things up, you know, it make things slightly more interesting. Now, I was offered by a subscriber very kindly a few months ago an Amstrad CPC as well, but unfortunately at the time my wife firmly put her foot down and said there was no more collecting of shit to be done. But she's since softened her position on that, probably because I've promised her a new kitchen in a few months, and she said that I can finally get one. Haven't you, dear? Haven't you, dear?
Yeah, I have, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
you're
sorry.
a good girl for that, aren't you, dear?
I am, yeah, that's
Yeah,
me.
she's sat over there watching shit American telly. But yeah, thank you for
Australian, actually.
Australian telly. Sorry, neighbours or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's completely thrown me. So yeah, hopefully I'm getting one of them coming through soon as well, which means I'll be able to do side by sides on the actual machines of all three. Now, I'm going to let this load. The Commodore 64 version is going to go first, and then the Spectrum version. I have no bias towards either version. Obviously, like I said, this is the only one that I've played. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Now, it's kind of neck and neck at the moment in these comparisons. Rambo, although it wasn't a bad game on the Spectrum, the music you know, it was a sort of killer win for the Commodore 64 version. But similarly, the Great Escape on the Spectrum was far superior to the Commodore 64 version, which was kind of a jerky mess, whereas the Specky version scrolled beautifully, you know, really amazing. Although the Commodore graphics looked really, really good on that game, when they started moving, it was just like a jerk fest. It really was abysmal. So that's the great thing. I'm going to be able to play the good, the bad, and the ugly of both systems, and there's going to be great games that are great on one system, and games that are shit on the other one. Now, one of the ones I really, really want to do is Armalite, and a lot of you might be sitting there thinking, but Armalite never came out on the Specky. That's true. I have the Commodore 64 tape, but I need to source another one from somewhere, because it gets all the way through the loading process, but then it just crashes as soon as you press fire or something like that. So I was really, really disappointed with that, because it's a game I've wanted to play for ages. But a version was planned for the Spectrum, and it got as far as a playable demo being released on a magazine cover tape, and I did a video of that some time back, and it really was quite impressive, and it's a shame that it never sort of came out. So I'd have loved to have been able to put the two of them together and see what how it went. Now, Buggy Boy and the C64 is loaded, so let's dive in to the video. Okay, here we are at the Commodore 64 version of Buggy Boy, released by Elite in 1987, it says there, based on the Taito arcade game of the same name, obviously. It's a time trial buggy racer. You've got to avoid obstacles, etc. Let's try and swap the joystick and see if that has any effect. Right, so there's a number of courses we can select: off-road, north, east, west, and south. Let's try south. Let's see how we get on with this. Quite a small oh right, car thing. I've got to get through those gates. Whoa, car sprite. Oh, fire is to change gear from up and down. Whoa, this is now, I have played this a few times, as I've said, obviously, and I really actually enjoyed it. I quite liked racing games on the Specky. There was a few really good ones that oh shit, that I enjoyed. I like the come on you fucker. I like the it's nice and colourful. The engine noise isn't particularly grating, and there's just that oh, excuse me, kind of chirpy whistle sort of type sound going on. Oh excuse me. That's the only come on, that's the only thing I've found, one of the sort of my bugbears with oh right, yeah, that was shit. But I actually enjoyed the game. Let's try that. Let's try west. As you can see, they're all sort of varying degrees of twisty-turniness. Not sure if that's a word, but if it wasn't, it is now, because Baz has just invented it. Yeah, it plays really, really nicely. Despite looking very basic from the sort of menu and front end, etc. There not being much in the way of music, which surprises me for a C64 game. It's actually really quite enjoyable, this. And hello, there's another one up there. And the it's just oh, where did you learn to drive? Everyone remember Cybermorph on the Atari Jaguar? Now that woman, sort of AI thing that kept on popping up every time you so much as went anywhere near an object. Where did you learn to fly? Pain in the arse she was. But yeah, this is really, really good, and the graphics, the sprite is nice and small, and unfortunately it doesn't turn into a submarine like Spy Hunter. In fact, it doesn't turn into a submarine in Spy Hunter, does it, you dick? It turns into a boat. It turns into an well, come on, right, so, got to avoid, oh shit. No, I'm not making much progress around the corner. Jesus Christ, you must have to have a rocket-powered car to get anywhere in this game. Let's try Yeast. So like I say, everything's pretty basic, and you'd have thought with the C64's capabilities and everything, that music capabilities, I mean, that, you know, it would have been an incredibly noisy game, music-wise. Oh shit! What a stupid place to build a road, you know, without clearing the rocks. Let's. Now this is really quite. Really does get. Oh, what's happening there? Really does get your adrenaline going, especially as. Ah! Whoa! Especially as you. Especially as you what, Baz? Come on. Ah! Jesus Christ. This is a fun game. Really, really fun. Like I say, I played this quite a bit when I first got the 64. And although the joystick that I have isn't particularly great, and it's a bit of an effort to, you know, I'm sure there could be. Oh, that was lucky. Just got a. Right. That's the Commodore 64 version of Buggy Boy. I really, really enjoy that game. I like the fact that the graphics are small enough that you can see the, although blocky, but you can still see the terrain ahead of you, etc., and sort of try and plan your way around. The fact that I'm the world's worst gamer, sort of like, you know. Prohibits me getting much further than that on all the courses. I've never managed to get all the way around on a course. Right, I'm going to put the 64 version away. Really, really nice, colourful game. Small, blocky graphics. Lack of sound and music, apart from engine noises and that sort of tune just as you're on the maps or course selection screen. But overall, really, really enjoyable. And I believe. It got, let me just grab the cassette box. It got a gold medal in Zap, so it must have been okay. Right, that's it. Let's move on to the Specky version. Okay, right, and we're now at the Spectrum version of Buggy Boy. I enjoyed the C64 version. You will see that these look very, very different from each other, although they're in effect the same game. I've only ever seen the Spectrum version in screenshots and other people's videos, etc. I have, up until about 15 minutes ago, never played this before. So I'm coming to this as a very much a novice. So let's see the Spectrum version of Buggy Boy. Right, so I'm going to select the off-road course. Same kind of thing. It's a off-road. It's a buggy-based time trial thing where you've got to go through gates, etc., and manage to get in it. Now, the first difference you're going to see is look how big that sort of sprite is on the car. I'm using keys on this, Q, A, O, P, and space. Space changes your gear from high to low gear, and the basic premise is the same. You know, get through as much of the course as you can, whilst avoiding crashing. Now, that's easier said than done. Whilst it's very colourful and the sprite is way bigger than the Commodore 64 version, I find the game moves a lot less speedily. Oh, he says, and it speeds up. Right. The size of the car can sort of like make negotiating some of these hazards really, really tricky. Especially when you fuck. Oh no, I went straight through them. And that's one difference. Is that your car explodes rather than spins over. Now, a real annoyance in this game is how long it takes your car to reappear back on the road whilst the timer is still ticking down. Now, arcade conversions on both machines were 10 a penny. They were a staple for a lot of people, and there were dozens upon dozens upon dozens of them. All of, many of which were, oh for God's sake, many of which were really good, many of which were not. Now I'm going to ask, what are your favourite arcade conversions, and also what do you think is the worst one you've ever played on either system? Now I don't know the Commodore well at all. I've not played many games on that at all, so I can't really comment on that. But for me, on the Spectrum, my favourite, I'm going to say something really that people wouldn't expect, is a game called Motos, which was an obscure arcade machine, I do believe, and it was released on the Spectrum by Mastertronic Added Dimension, so it was a £3-quidder, and it is an absolutely fantastic game. Motos, M-O-T-O-S. I really suggest you go and check that out if you've never heard of it, because it's fantastic. It's one of a few games that I still sort of return to today. Everything about it is great. The fact that it's a budget title is absolutely amazing. It's got great graphics, great sound, great gameplay. It's fantastic. And the worst one is going to be, I've done a couple of videos on this, I'm going to have to say, is Kung Fu Master. Because that game is just abysmal in every sense of the word. Can I get through the time? Oh shit, no, I missed it. Now, it's very sort of jerky. There is a sort of sense of speed, I suppose, but it's not particularly great, and I'm finding it quite tricky to sort of see beyond that sort of huge sprite, which is your car. It's not as instantly enjoyable as the Commodore version. Oh, it's a multi-load thing as well. Let's try. Oh, for God's sake. I forgot about that. Oh, let's get that back a little bit. Oh, balls, come on. Let's just see if we can get it to sort of load further from here. So, yeah, it's not as instantly playable, the Spectrum version, as the C64 version is, I don't think. There doesn't seem to be a 128K version of it. I did load this in through 128 on the Plus 2. And it doesn't seem, it just seems to be sort of like 48K, hence this sort of multi-load thing. Oh, and that really plays into the big downfall of the Plus 2, which has got no fucking tape counter on it. Right, let's, oh, I've pressed, oh, for God's sake. Right, so, oh, that was north I wanted, wasn't it? I've just, oh, I forgot. You just loaded north. Ah, anyway, that's gone bent, so let's see, right, is it going to make me load off-road again? Yes, it picking well is. I can't be doing with this. There's things to like about both versions. The Commodore 64 just seems a bit more accessible and playable, despite looking sort of blockier and the sort of sprites being much smaller. That actually makes the game easier to play. That massive big sort of Spectrum sprite it really sort of like does hinder the sort of your sort of progress into the game. And this multi-load thing, pain in the backside. I forgot all about that, and you know the fact that it's a 1987 release. They could have made it sort of like load all in at once, I suppose. But hey ho. So I'll have to say, out of the two, from my very limited sort of plays there, that the Spectrum the Commodore 64 version wins that. It's not you know, the Spectrum version isn't bad, but it's got some frustrations in it. You know, the sort of fairly sluggish movement, the sort of the sort of size of the sprite, and the difficulty to see obstacles, and you know, that sort of multi-load really. It was yeah, it was a tricky one. Thanks ever so much for watching. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching it. If you like it, please let me know. If you wish to subscribe, please do so. But if you do subscribe, please, please, please take the time to join in the discussion. I'm really, really sorry that I couldn't show you more of the Spectrum version. Just can't be arsed with all that multi-loading. Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.